This is Mrs. Vaca, and we're going to take notes on writing exponential equations from a table. Okay, when we wrote linear equations from a table, we had slope-intercept form, and it was y equals mx plus b. For exponential equations, it's called base-intercept form, and it's y equals b to the x over d power times c. Now, this x over d is supposed to be an exponent. Okay, so it will look more like y equals b to the x over d power. That's supposed to be an exponent, and then times c. Okay, b is going to be the rate of change, which is the same words that we used for slope in linear. The rate of change for exponential is the number you multiply or divide in the range. So that's the pattern in the range. Linear had addition and subtraction patterns. Exponential are going to have multiplication and division patterns. C is the y-intercept. This is still where x equals 0 in the table, and that's the same as it was with linear. And then D is the pattern in the domain. Okay, so you're still going to find both your patterns, the pattern in the x's, the pattern in the y's, and you're going to find your y-intercept. They're just going to be plugged into different spots than they were with linear. So for example, you're still going to start, step 1 is still going to be to find your patterns. The pattern in your domain is still going to be addition or subtraction. So these numbers are getting bigger by 2. So this is a plus 2 pattern in the domain. In the range, these are not getting bigger by the same number. You cannot add a number to 1.25 to get 5 and then add that same number from 5 to get 20. So this tells you it should be a multiplication or division pattern. Multiplication patterns are patterns where the numbers are getting bigger. Division patterns are patterns where the numbers are getting smaller. So this is going to be a times pattern. Okay? I like to look at the whole numbers. Okay, so what do I multiply 5 by to get 20? 4. Well, 20 times 4 is 80, so it works. So those are my two patterns. Our y-intercept is going to be wherever x is 0. So in this example, the y-intercept is 5. Okay? Our rate of change is not slope. So you do not divide these two numbers, our two patterns. Our rate of change is just simply our multiplication or division pattern. So our rate of change is 4 because we're multiplying by 4. Okay? Remember, our equation is going to be in the format y equals b with an exponent of x over d times c. Okay? B is our multiplication or division pattern, so that's 4. We multiply by 4. Then we'll have an exponent of x. That's what makes this exponential, an exponential equation. D is your pattern in the domain, so that's 2. And then C is your y-intercept, so that's 5. And that's your equation. So you're still finding the same things. You're finding your two patterns and your y-intercept. They just get plugged into different spots with exponential. Alright, next example, find your patterns. In the domain, these are getting bigger, so it's an addition pattern, and they're getting bigger by 3. So that's a plus 3 pattern. In the range, 5 plus 5 is 10, but 10 plus 5 is not 20. So this is not an addition pattern, it's not linear. Okay, 5 times 2 is 10. 10 times 2 is also 20. So this is a times 2 pattern. Okay, our y-intercept is wherever x is 0. So our y-intercept is 10. For exponential, our rate of change is this pattern. Okay, times 2 pattern. It's not slope, so it's not a fraction. We just use the times 2 pattern. Then our equation, remember, is y equals b to the x over d times c. Alright, so B is our rate of change, our multiplication pattern. X is just an exponent. D is our pattern in the domain, so that's 3. And C is our y-intercept, which is 10. And that's the equation. Alright, example 3. Find your two patterns. Okay, so this in the domain is going up by 1, so that's a +1 pattern. In the range, these numbers are getting smaller, so this is going to be a divide by pattern. To go from 100 to 25, that would be divide by 4. To go from 25 to 6.5, that is divide by 4, and you would check that in your calculator. Alright, and then our y-intercept is wherever x equals 0, so in this case it's 100. So when you go to find your rate of change is going to be your pattern, multiplication or division pattern. A multiplication pattern of times 4, the rate of change would be 4. Well, this is a divide by pattern, so the rate of change can't be 4. Divide by 4, remember fractions and divide by problems are the same. So a divide by 4 problem pattern is 1 divide by 4, which is a fourth. Your y-intercept is 100. Your equation is what y equals b to the x over d pattern times c. Alright, so y equals our pattern, the divide by 4 pattern, an exponent of x. Our pattern in the domain was 1, and our y-intercept was 100. Okay, so you can clearly see the difference in the equation of a divide by pattern and a multiply pattern. A divide by pattern is going to have a fraction here for b. A multiplication pattern is going to have a whole number for b. Alright, you can go ahead and pause the video here and try this on your own and then hit play when you're ready. Alright, the pattern in the domain here, these numbers are getting bigger, so it's an addition pattern, and they're getting bigger by 4. In the range, these numbers are getting bigger, so it's multiplication. 1 times 3 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27, so this is a times 3 pattern. Okay, your y-intercept is wherever x equals 0, so in this case the y-intercept is 1. Your rate of change is your multiplication or division pattern. So in this case our rate of change is 3. Your equation is the format y equals b to the x over d power times c. Alright, so b is our multiplication pattern, x is an exponent, d is our pattern in the domain, which is our addition or subtraction pattern, and c is our y-intercept. In this case it's 1. Alright, again you can pause the video and try this one and then come back and hit play when you're ready. Alright, our pattern in the domain, these numbers are getting bigger and they're getting bigger by 5, so that's a +5 pattern. In the range, our numbers are getting bigger, so that's multiplication. They're getting bigger by 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is 125, so this is a times 5 pattern. And then our y-intercept is not in the table. So just like with linear, you have to work backwards in the table using the pattern until you get to 0. So 20 minus 5 is 15. 15 minus 5 is 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. Okay, so whatever number matches up with this is our y-intercept. So just like with linear, you're going to work backwards. Instead of times 5, you'll divide 5. 625 divided by 5 is 125. 125 divided by 5 is 25. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So our y-intercept is 1. Our rate of change is our multiplication or division pattern. So that would be a times 5 pattern. And our equation is y equals b to the x over d power times c. Alright, so y equals b, which is our multiplication or division pattern, so that's 5. Exponent of x divided by d, which is our addition pattern. And then c is our y-intercept. So y equals 5 to the x over 5 power times 1.